When did you become a Bengals fan? That is the question I am asking you guys to start off today's edition of Bengals Breakdown. Have you been a Bengals fan for life, or is it recent? Maybe the Joe Burrow era is what made you become a Bengals fan. For me, born and raised in Cincinnati kid, I've been a Bengals fan for as long as I can remember. But sound off for me right now in the comment section. When did you become a Bengals fan? Bengals fans, what is going on? Stone Shields on hand for another edition of Bengals Breakdown. Thank you so much for joining us here today. And on today's show, Paul Dehner Jr. of The Athletic does a phenomenal job covering the Bengals for that publication. Released his 53-man roster projection for the Cincinnati Bengals with some significant dates on the horizon, meaning the 2 joint practices, of course, and the 2 preseason games. And from there, the Bengals on August 27th will cut down to 53 men on their roster. And on today's show, we're going to spend time taking a look at what Dehner's roster looks like. So we'll start at the quarterback room, and this one is pretty obvious. Obviously, Joe Burrow is your guy at quarterback 1. Jake Browning in that second spot. Look, I understand he did not play well at all for the Bengals' first preseason game. But based off what he did last year, this spot is his. Even if Logan Woodside continues to produce for Cincinnati these 2 preseason games, that spot belongs to Jake Browning. So not many questions there at the quarterback position. This is where things get a little bit interesting here at running back. Dehner has the Bengals only keeping 3 running backs. Of course, last year, they kept 4 in 2023, and most teams typically keep 4, but he has the Bengals only keeping 3 here in his roster projection and cites a backlog at other positions to be the reasoning as to why they only take 3. I got to push back on this a little bit. I believe they still have Chris Evans stick around and be that 4th running back on the Bengals roster, but you never know. They could go a different way, perhaps maybe keep another tight end, which we'll get into in a moment, or maybe another guy on the offensive or defensive line. But Dehner has the Bengals keeping 3 at the running back position. That's kind of the first thing that stood out to me as a little bit out of the norm, I guess, so to speak, for Dehner's 53-man roster projection. Which leads us to the pinned comment of today's show. Will the Bengals carry a 4th running back? Again, it's still my way of thinking that they're going to keep 4. Things certainly could change. I think a lot of people around the team are with Dehner and think that they probably will only keep 3. But for now, I think they'll take 4. Let us know what you think in the comments section. Type Y for yes or type N for no. You know the drill. If that ad comes here on YouTube, that's fine. Take advantage of it. Get down in the comments section and get interactive and let us know what you think. All right, wide receiver room. This one's kind of been set in stone. We've talked about it at length for a while. Bengals probably going to keep 6 guys here. They've kept 7 in the past, but I would expect 6 guys to be kept here. And it seems like Charlie Jones has avoided serious injury when he banged knees with Allen George at practice. So it looks like he will be good to go for week 1. Not certain yet, but it looks like that is the case. And if that is the case, then the wide receiver room is definitely set. If Jones, for whatever reason, can't go, that opens up opportunities for some of the other guys that we saw get a lot of action against the Buccaneers last Saturday. But for now, this is your 6 guys at the wide receiver position for Cincinnati going forward. All right, at the tight end spot, he's got the Bengals keeping 4 guys. And I don't think it would be completely out of the realm of possibility for the Bengals to keep a 5th tight end. We know how much they fall in love with their draft picks. And as you can tell here, Tanner McLachlan is not on this list. So I'm going to go out on a bit of a limb here. I don't think they're going to keep 5, but I'm going to say that they cut Tanner Hudson. That's just kind of what my gut is telling me right now. That is a bold thing to say. I understand that. But I think the Bengals would rather go with a different Tanner, one in which they drafted, of course, in the 6th round of the 2024 draft. And I think that's where I'm a little bit different here. It wouldn't shock me at all if they took 5 guys. And also understand Dehner's, again, had the Bengals only taken 3 running backs. And Drew Sample got some work kind of blocking as a running back last year. So he could be used as kind of a flex guy. Obviously, you're not going to hand the ball off to Drew Sample, but he is a guy that can, do some of that blocking ability as a guy in the backfield. So that's something to keep in mind, but these are the 4 tight ends that Paul Dehner Jr. has listed. Again, I would be surprised if they let Tanner McLaughlin walk, a guy in which they just drafted a couple of months ago. Moving on to the offensive line. Probably going to keep 10 guys here. I guess you could potentially keep 9 or potentially keep 11, but I would be surprised if that were the case. Your guys on the left are your starters. Man, my heart still hurts for Amarius Mims. It really felt like he was on track to be the guy week 1. Just the way the coaching staff talked about him at length and really just kind of glowed when they talked about a guy like Amarius Mims. But for now, that strained pectoral has him sidelined. That inserts Trent Brown right back into that starting lineup. As far as the guys behind him, there's still very much a battle at that spot. Some guys that are on the outside looking in, according to Dehner. Devin Cochran and Matt Lee. Of course, Jackson Carman is not on this list. Eric Miller, another guy as well. Again, the Bengals really love their draft picks. They like to hold on to them. So I think they will make room for Matt Lee. He is, primarily a center, and you already got, of course, Ted Karras. And then Trey Hill played, I think they view him as their backup center at this point. But I would be surprised if Matt Lee doesn't make the team. We'll see if he continues to play well over the next 2 games for Cincinnati. Now, the notable name that wasn't on that list is Jackson Carman. Of course, he played horrendously in the Bengals preseason opener against the Buccaneers, getting 4 penalties, 3 of which were enforced. But let me know in the comment section, will Jackson Carman get cut? Type 1 for yes or 0 for no. I think his time has run out in Cincinnati unless he really turns things around these next 2 preseason games and can earn some trust back from that coaching staff. I think he's probably going to be on his way out. But let me know what you think right now down in the comments section. Moving over to the defensive line here for the Cincinnati Bengals. Again, probably going to keep 10 guys in this room. They've got a lot of bodies that can play on the interior in terms of the defensive tackle position. The only problem is not very many of them are very good, right, for Cincinnati. Of course, bringing in 3 guys, signing Andre Carter, Carlos Davis, and Josh Pryor. All 3 of those guys have the ability to play on the inside. Andre Carter, more of an edge guy, but I don't anticipate any of those 3 making the team. Chris Jenkins certainly needs to play better than what he displayed on Saturday night. McKinley Jackson, another draft pick of the Bengals. I think they have a lot of high hopes for him, but he's been banged up, so they're really thin at that spot. Remember, they're trying to find somebody that can fill in for that DJ Reader role that he filled so nicely the past few years, and it's going to be tough for them to do that. That is the biggest concern of mine for the Cincinnati Bengals in 2024. I don't know if they're going to be able to stop the run, and I don't know if they're going to be able to get any pressure on the quarterback outside of Trey Hendrickson. So we will see what happens. Somebody's going to have to step up, particularly on the interior of the defensive line, and of course Cam Sample is on IR. He is out for the year, so a guy like Joseph Osai is going to have to step up at that edge spot, as well as another 6th-round pick in Cedric Johnson out of Ole Miss. Somebody's got to have an impact and step up, and they're going to be watching that room very closely these next 2 preseason games as well. Here's the linebacker room, according to Paul Dehner Jr. of The Athletic. I think the Bengals will keep 5 at this spot. Could keep 4, but I think they'll go 5. Went 5 last year. Not to do too much of a victory lap here, but our guy Maema Njongmeta is there at the bottom of this depth chart, according to Paul Dehner Jr. He's a guy I've been very high on. We've been very high on him here on the show, coming in out of Wisconsin as an undrafted free agent. Completely balled out against Tampa Bay last Saturday night. And now, according to Dehner, he finds his way on the roster. I think those top 4 are locks. Njongmeta competing with guys like Shaka Hayward, who also had a good outing on Saturday. Aaron Casey, Devin Harper as well. But I think Njongmeta is the guy to beat right now and the front runner for that 5th linebacker spot for Cincinnati. Want to give a shout out to our friends over at Fanatics. Amarius Mims jerseys are available now. Go get you an Amarius Mims jersey courtesy of our friends at Fanatics. Again, he was playing so well. Every time you just hear him talk to the media, you love everything about the kid. and unfortunately he's going to be sidelined for a few weeks. So that is certainly very unfortunate, but you can still show your support for the Bengals' first-round pick and go get you an Amarius Mims jersey. That link will be in the comments and the description of today's show, so check that out right now. That's chatsports.com/Amarius Mims. Moving over to the cornerback spot. He's got 5 guys here. Now, you might be like, oh, only 5 corners. Probably going to be 6, right? But the main thing is there's going to be 10 DBs, right? And you've got some flexibility with Dejon Anthony, which we'll get to him in a moment. But this cornerback room, Cam Taylor-Britt's your guy. I'm starting to think this competition is really real between Dax Hill and DJ Turner. I thought DJ Turner had a significant lead in this battle. But after that preseason game, Dax Hill looks like he could potentially be a starting cornerback in this league. I'm not writing Dax Hill off whatsoever, and it wouldn't surprise me if he was the guy walking out on the field first against New England in Week 1. And part of me is kind of hoping that's the case, to be honest. I've kind of done a bit of a 180 on that because I really loved what I saw out of Dax Hill. And after the Bengals' first preseason game, he's been getting those reps pretty frequently with the ones out there for Lou Anarumo. So something certainly to monitor. We'll see if Dax Hill can back up that performance in these next 2 preseason games for the Cincinnati Bengals. Josh Newton, of course, before we move on, had an interception. He's really opened a lot of eyes. Again, a rookie for the Bengals, hoping to have an impact. He's certainly a lock to make the roster, no question about it. And I think that Josh Newton is a really good pickup for the Bengals in the 5th round. Moving over to that safety spot, again, you're looking at 5 guys here because Dejon Anthony has that flexibility to kind of be that swing DB for you. He can play some corner. He'll play some safety as well. And I think he was a guy that the Bengals weren't necessarily expecting to go out and make the roster. But based off his performance at training camp, he's looked really good for Cincinnati. Of course, a 7th-round pick. He does have that fractured nose, but he can play through it. And I don't think that's going to prevent him from making this team for Cincinnati. Tycen Anderson, also a guy I'm really high on, but we haven't got to see much of him because he continues to get hurt. So we'll see if he's able to go out there and produce for Cincinnati. I'm really hoping he is. And as for that safety spot, we kind of acted like Jordan Battle and Von Bell was going to be a competition for that spot. There's no competition at this point. It is Von Bell's job 100%. Really love what the Bengals have in Jordan Battle. He will be that guy eventually. But for now, it's Von Bell, and he's back. And instead of Jesse Bates being his running mate, it's going to be Geno Stone. And I think that's going to give Bengals fans shades of what they saw a couple of years ago with that Bates-Bell combination, instead being Stone and Bell. And I think you should be really excited about that. Really, really excited for what the Bengals have going at the safety position. And lastly, before we get out of here, these are the specialists according to Paul Dehner Jr. Evan McPherson, no question there. We'll see if he's able to get an extension. That's kind of really the main buzz around Evan McPherson at this point. Cal Adamitis is going to be our long snapper. Has done a great job for the Bengals. And this is somewhat of a surprise to some, having Ryan Rehkow listed as the Bengals punter above Brad Robbins. Now, Brad Robbins did hurt his hip in practice this week, and that's probably why Dehner has this the way he does. But I'm in agreement here. I think, I saw enough out of Robbins last year. It wasn't that great. Saw what Rehkow did on last Saturday night against Tampa. Really liked what I saw. He didn't blow me away by any means, but I think he's certainly a guy with a lot of upside, has a massive leg, and we'll see if he can back up that performance and play well these next 2 preseason games. Because if he does, I would probably go with Rehkow as the punter for the Bengals as well. So pick a punter for me for the Cincinnati Bengals. Type BR for Brad Robbins or type RR for Ryan Rehkow. Sound off for me in the comments of today's show.